Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host, Brandon Bateman, and today I'm joined by Nick Perry. Nick Perry is the godfather of the national wholesaling model. Not only was he the first one to do that model, but he's done it on a level that nobody else has yet done it. He's bought more deals in more states than anybody else. We're going to talk about what motivates him as a person. We're going to talk about what his team looked like. We're going to talk about how his business model has shifted in his story. And I think there's a ton in this episode that you're going to get value from. So without further discussion, let's get into it. How you doing today, Nick?
Amazing, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I even caught you in the United States. What a rare opportunity. So you're in your office right now in Austin with the team.
I am. Yeah, I'm in here with the team right now. We're busting out of this office, getting ready to move into another office. So I'm back here helping with the transition.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I'm super excited to speak to you. You have been on the top of my mind for this podcast for a period of time, and honestly, whenever anybody asks me, because there's this, there's people that believe that a real estate business today has to be built the same way it was built 10 or 20 years ago, and it's and obviously the world has changed, and it's not like those old things don't work anymore. In many ways they do, but when people ask me, like, is anybody actually doing really well with some of these newer, more innovative models, I always point my finger to you and say, well, look at Nick Perry, because I don't know anybody who's accomplished more of a like modern national virtual wholesaling real estate model on the level that you have. So I'm sure you have millions of cool insights and things to share, but I'm super excited to dig into it. But if it's okay with you, let's start with your story. How did you get into real estate, and what was between there and where you are today?
Yeah, I've always been an inside sales guy, so I'm going to start it off with that. We are in the inside sales business. We're not in real estate. Real estate is just the widget, right? So my background and my experience comes from banging the phones, 60 calls a day, 120 minutes, high quotas, and I've been able to take that into what we do now, and it's the exact same thing. So bring you back to how I started. I started off very humble beginnings. I was a grew up a screw up. I was in and out of juvie growing up for underage drinking and fighting, and um, I had to grow up quick. Um, my parents were divorced, so I lived with my dad. My dad was a landscaper, just trying to get by. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment and not the best part of town. He was struggling to make rent, much less afford clothes or food or anything. So I had to start working at an early age. So I started working, um, you know, every day after school when I was 14. When I was 15, I was working at a cell phone store. I got a promotion to store manager, and they were like, "Hey, we want to promote you to store manager. It comes with a raise, but it's full time." And so I had to choose between work and school, and I chose work. And that was the end of my education in high school. I dropped out in 10th grade, and I've been working ever since. After high school, I became a personal trainer, and I realized, as a personal trainer, that I was really trading time for money. I was a I did well as a personal trainer, had full book of clients. I trained in a wealthy part of town, and I made good money for a personal trainer. So 18, 19 years old, I'm making 80, 100K a year. But my clients are pulling up in Rolls Royces. They live in the mansions around the area, telling me about their trips to the Maldives, and I'm quickly realizing, like, why are they making millions of dollars and I'm not? And so my first mentors were really my clients. I would interview them like while I was training them, and lo and behold, none of them had 9 to 5 jobs. None of them had any W-2 income. It was all I would got rich through real estate, or I own a business. And so success leaves clues. And I said, you know what? I really need to figure out this real estate thing. But I didn't have any money. I didn't have any credit. I didn't have any experience. And, I came across real estate wholesaling. I was living in Northern Virginia, which was where I grew up. And I was kind of tired of living there. So I quit my job and I moved down to Austin, Texas. No job, no connections. I had $5,000 to my name. So I moved to a little 1 bedroom apartment in the hood with a laptop, bag of clothes, and an air mattress. And that's how I started my real estate journey. I needed to figure out what was going to be my next move, and I didn't want to get a job, so I got on YouTube and started researching real estate wholesaling, and that brought me down that route. And this is very early days. I was handwriting yellow letters, sending out bandit signs, and striking out left and right. I was getting appointments, but I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor, and I was getting my ass handed to me. You know, getting told no, 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 and I was running out of money to keep my dream of my of being my own boss alive. So I went and got a job at Indeed.com. They're headquartered here in Austin, and so I started doing inside sales at Indeed. And I was when I started that job, negative $800 in my bank account. Didn't know how I was going to make rent. And I told myself, I'm only getting this job so I can come out and keep this dream alive and be an entrepreneur. So I went in and I gave it everything I had. And I went from negative $800 in my bank account to making $250,000 a year, rookie of the year, top gun, top of the leaderboards. And I used all of that uh, money to put into my business. So I use that money to go to masterminds. I use it to go to to put into marketing, and I worked nonstop for those first 3 years. It took me 11 months and 104 face-to-face seller appointments. This is when I used to drive to the houses before I got my first deal. So it wasn't like
Wow.
an overnight success. I really struggled in the beginning, and it just it took it just that was part of my journey. It took me that long to get my first deal, and I worked nonstop. 9 to 5 at Indeed, get home, eat dinner, and then back on the phones until midnight until I couldn't stay awake anymore, and then every day on the weekends. And that's basically how the journey began. So I did that, and it took me 104 appointments to get my first deal, and then all that money from my first assignment, which was 12,000, I put it right back into marketing. And then quickly after that, I got deal 2, 3, and 4. And then I continued doing this for, I was stayed in my 9 to 5 for 2 years. So until 2016, I stayed in my 9 to 5, and then I made the transition full time into real estate. Built my company. Since then, we've got 22 employees. Um, you know, we're doing 5, $6 million a year and growing right now, and that's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, that's awesome, Nick. I'm so curious. I've never talked to anybody that went on so many appointments to get their first deal. And at that time, I don't think your sales skills were new. I mean, you'd been doing that for some time and you were performing really well in another sales job. So what do you attribute the reason to that being such a difficult start for you at the very beginning?
I didn't know how to comp properties. I wasn't you know confident in what I was looking at. I didn't have um, you know the right exit strategies. I was locking stuff up at full retail. Just making a lot of the beginning entry level mistakes, and that's really what held me back. And I was just you know, kind of stubborn in the ways that I wanted to figure. I was going to figure this out myself. I was going to watch YouTube videos until nauseum until I got it down, and I was trying to piecemeal advice from multiple different people together, and that is not what worked. It wasn't until like I got a real mentor and started attending real masterminds that I structured my business properly and I started getting real traction.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminds me of, in some ways, of the beginning of my journey. And I look back at it like I was like too dumb to stop, basically, at the very beginning of when I had started Bateman Collective. And you hustle for, it's crazy. Like I hustled for so long for like 2 or 3 clients, like probably 2 or 3 clients in my first year, like working all the time to make that happen. And now, we'll onboard 2 or 3 clients like in 2 or 3 days. And it's
Exactly.
insane, how much that changes when you start to learn and start to understand what you're doing as a business. That's wild. Also, the part of that whole journey where I imagine you grew the most is the part you like glazed over super fast, because it's like, the origin story and then where you are today. But like, I imagine you went through quite a bit between like just being the guy who had figured out to get those two, three, four deals to the guy that can run the business doing $5 to $6 million a year in revenue. What Tell me about that growth path. I'm super curious to hear like what struggles you had then, and what helped you break past that seven-figure mark, and what helped you get from that three to that six. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, for the first 4 years, we were stuck at, 3 to 5 deals a month. And I felt like that was a real tough point for me to break past. And the reason is because I wasn't marketing properly. Um, my people sucked, my system sucked. And so I had to, I was hiring people, firing people. I wasn't tracking my KPIs properly. These were all things that um, were the difference maker from 3 to 5 deals a month to, 35, 45 deals a month. So now our marketing is streamlined. We do all inbound marketing, PPC. We have our, team is top notch. They're, tracked on very strict metrics for performance. And, our systems, we've invested heavily into making sure we have the best software, the best tech, in order for them to do their jobs effectively.
Yeah, that's crazy. Isn't it wild how the most successful companies and the ones that just can't make it work have a lot of the same elements, right? You had people, you were hiring, you were firing, you had KPIs, you had systems. So many people think of it as like a checklist, like I got to get these things, but the level of mastery of each one of those things sounds like that's what took you to the next level.
Correct. Yeah. And everybody always likes to ask me, what are the top three things that made you, what was the turning point from 5 deals to 45 deals? And I wish I could give you like one tip or one software, but it's really, the mastery, becoming 1% better every single day over, you know, a year, 5 years. The compounding effect of that is really what gets you there. So there's no silver bullet. There's no, magic software. Of course, all those things help make you 1% better, right? So that's the true answer and what it takes. There's no, real shortcuts to success. So sorry to break it to you guys. I can give you a lot of tips and things that'll speed up that process, but you're gonna have to commit to mastery and commit to, growth every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome, Nick. So I'm really excited to dig into like what your business model looks like right now. Just the basics, right? Like what does marketing look like? What does acquisitions look like? What does what does the team structure look like? Anything that you think is really helpful. I know a lot of people listening to this podcast feel like you did back before you had that breakthrough, right? Stuck in that 2 to 4 deal per month range with the wrong systems, the wrong people, um, probably even a pivoted business model from where you are now. So tell me about some of those key factors that make your business as it functions today different from the average wholesale real estate business.
Um, yeah, so we're nationwide. We do property all over the country. In terms of marketing, like I said, we're all Google inbound PPC, and like rather than just tell you what my team looks like, I'd rather just show you. So here we go. I'll take you into my acquisitions room. So this is my
Oh,
acquisitions team right here. We've
oh,
got
sweet.
everybody's on the phones. You guys are cranking out deals left and right. So got 8 or 9 guys here on acquisitions. You guys are on a podcast right now. Y'all are be famous. Um, and then back over here up front, we've got our transactions team that are on the phone right now. You're on a podcast. You're gonna be famous. And then we've got my CEO and executive assistant over here. They're cranking out um, everything we need to be able to run this business at a high level. And then back here, I have a dispositions team. So I've got three dispo. So they're all on phones, cranking right now. So that's what it looks like to run a $5-6 million a year operation in a nutshell.
That is super neat, and just there's tons of little takeaways in that little office tour. By the way, for anybody listening to this, this is your sign that you got to start watching these on YouTube instead of listening to the podcast form. But yeah, that's interesting. That ratio of the number of acquisitions reps to the number of dispo reps, crazy interesting because it's a little bit stronger on dispo than the average real estate company, which I think is a piece of your model, correct?
Yeah, it's about having streamlined processes on Dispo, making sure that our acquisitions are doing a great job of locking these deals up at the right price. Because if you don't lock them up at the right price, it's going to take a ton of bandwidth on Dispo. And if you don't have the right systems on Dispo, like having certain softwares like Investor Lift, PropStream, et cetera, I could go down the list. But if you don't have the right systems and processes on Dispo, you're going to have to hire a lot of Dispo to manage the amount of volume that we do.
Yeah, totally fair. I'm really curious to ask. Obviously, yeah, recording this, we're in September of 2023. Um, a lot of people kind of got thrown for a loop close to a year ago. Tell me about like with your business model and how you operate. What effects, if any, did the market shift have on your operation, and did you make any changes?
I didn't even realize people were struggling and having there was a problem in the market until like a couple of months ago. People were like, "Yeah, we got crushed in Q4 and Q1." I was like, "I missed the memo," because I think the fact that we are nationwide, the fact that we pivoted to novations and selling to retail buyers, wholetailing and doing novations, that was a big shift we did early on. We did that, Q2, Q3 of last year.
Okay.
So we missed we never sold to hedge funds or anything either. So that was, I know where a lot of people got the rug pulled from underneath them. And then cash buyers started drying up because the interest rates skyrocketed and construction prices skyrocketed. So we had already made the shift before, all of that transpired.
That's wild. You like timed it just right. Because yeah, so many of the people that I know that were doing well and then they struggled and then now they're doing well again. They were doing a lot of wholesaling. It hit them hard. They lost a lot of cash buyer traction. I mean, either your deals are going to contract in their size or you're not even going to sell them to cash buyers in a tough period like that. And then they started learning other exit strategies, pretty much anything that gets you to the MLS. And be it
Correct.
wholesale or wholesale or maybe flips in some of the circumstances for people that want that headache in their business. Um, and then they're doing better. That's crazy. That's like I, I don't think luck's the right word because I'm sure there's a lot of there's a lot of vision behind that. But that's awesome that you had timed that just right when other people needed that.
Yeah, we had experimented with before and we just saw the traction that we are getting. And so we leaned heavy into what was working and that was a blessing, We were very fortunate that we made that shift early.
Well, it's crazy because often the things that save your business in a time that's hard are just getting better at the same things that you should have been doing even before, where that would have been what would have taken you from profitable to very profitable before, and then now with this shift it could just take you from not profitable to profitable in some circumstances. Like I think that's I'm totally with you that people using those exit strategies even before the market shift, it was still better. People were still getting larger spreads than they were through other exit strategies. People were just content because they didn't need to do much better than they were doing, right? It seemed like a lot of the people I was talking to, their focus was selling the deal, not maximizing the deal spread, because they could still be profitable and move on to the next one.
I agree. I mean, and that's a good point that you made. It's, the people that are uh, training every single day, they're working on getting better every single day. When, shifts in the market happen, those are going to be the companies that excel versus the people that go out of business, right? If you run a clean operation, you're dedicated to becoming better. When things do happen, you're much stronger and much more equipped to deal with market changes. So it's just about being the best you can be individually and we preach that in our company. It's like, hey, we're one of our core values is never ending improvement. And that goes down from the individual level and that rolls up to the company. We're always self scrutinizing. How can we become better individually and as a company?
Yeah, it's insane. The best leaders, you don't have to ask them what their core values are, right? You spend a little bit of time with them, and you'll know that. And I can tell you, I knew that about you. I knew you had some core value that was like growth or never ending improvement or 1% better every day. Like I didn't know what words you used yet, but I knew it was something like that. And that's awesome. Something else I noticed in your office tour that was abnormal. You had a CEO. Most people don't have a CEO. Speak to if you don't mind, speak to that decision. You know why you chose to have a CEO, and you know what they do, and what that means for the business and how it interacts with your life and all that stuff.
Yeah, he does everything. So you guys kind of caught me at a interesting time because I'm not really here in my office very often. I live in Cancun, Mexico. Previous to that, I lived in Panama City, Panama, Miami, Florida. So I come to my office as needed, mainly because I want to. I don't have to be here, and I enjoy that freedom. I wanted to build my life to where I can, you know, do what I want when I want. I'm young. I like to travel. So I wanted to build my company in a way that I was not the bottleneck. So this having a CEO was not like I hired him in and stepped out of my business. This was a very long process to get it to this point. Brandon was actually my intern when I was at Indeed in the corporate world. And
Interesting.
yeah, so he would see me locking up a deal at Indeed, and then I'd click over to a few other tabs to Podio, and I'd lock up a deal, with a seller, right? And he was like, "Wow, this is interesting." And I was like, "Listen, kid, just prospect my leads, do what I tell you to do. Don't ask me questions about real estate, whatever." He ended up really taking an interest to it, so I was like, "Here, take this course." And he took the Sean Terry course, and ended up getting a deal on his first direct mail campaign. I coached him through it. Long story short, he got hired at Indeed. I left Indeed and didn't think I'd ever talk to him again. And he was making six figures, doing well at Indeed, also interested in real estate. 6 months later, he called me out of the blue asking if he could come work for me. I said, I don't have a position for you, but you can cold call my old leads, basically a follow up specialist for $500 a week. And he left a six-figure job, 401k benefits, to come basically be, my junior acquisition at the time. And then from there, he worked every job in the company. As we brought in new reps, he helped hire and train. He started, he became a closer on acquisitions, then ran our acquisitions team. And then eventually he was at the point where he was ready to take over Dispo as well. So he took over ACK and Dispo, and he was promoted to COO. So this is still 2017 through 2020. He was the COO of our company, and he did everything. And towards the end of his tenure as a COO, I was still in the office every day, but I wasn't doing anything. I was scrolling TikTok all day. And in 2021, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and move and see how you do, and I'll come back. And he did very well over the next couple of quarters, and so I promoted him to CEO. So that was the evolution. So he earned his stripes to become the CEO of the company. He's been with us for 8 years now, and has worked every single role in the company and knows the business better than I do, probably at this point.
Yeah, that's wild. And it has to be an inspiration to other people starting with the company that there is a path for growth within the company. I
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you hire another COO when you promoted him, or is it just him with
No.
a new responsibility?
Yeah, he has department heads now. So we have a director of acquisitions, director and dispositions, and they report to him. So he has two people underneath him that um, report directly to him, and that's how we're structured. So we don't need to be that top heavy. I don't like having a bunch of high paid executives within my company. So that's how we're organized right now.
Okay, super helpful to know. Well, that's awesome, man. So so that considered, let's just say I'm an investor and I subscribe to this mindset where I say, why would I go to more markets than just the one I'm in if I haven't dominated the one that I'm in. It doesn't make sense to expand if you haven't won already. What would you say to that?
Well, there's multiple reasons. One, when if you're doing digital marketing, you know that the larger, um, the larger the audience that you serve your ads in front of, and is typically going to result in a lower lead cost, right? So if I'm marketing, say in Dallas Fort Worth for on PPC, and I'm just using you doing that market, my cost per lead is probably going to be 300 to 400% higher than if I do national or statewide. So economies of scale in marketing is one big piece of it. Additionally, when you're spread out, in we do the United States, you're going to be surprised about how we pick up these deals. We pick up deals in towns that you've never heard of, and we're ripping spreads that are crazy because there's no competition. So we'll go lock up a novation for $40,000, put it on the MLS for 25, and that's literally what happened this morning on a deal in Barnesville, Illinois, or some. I don't even know like that.
That's
So
wild.
you can't, like I said, you can't get caught up on you're in the real estate game. We're literally day trading houses like we're doing stocks. So I don't care where the property is. We can tell based on the way that we evaluate these properties. Is this a good town? Is it a bad town? I don't care if it's my backyard. I don't care if it's Hawaii. If the demographic data looks good, then we're going to go ahead and pursue that lead.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And to share with you a little bit of my experience with these models, because I get the blessing of working with I think right now we work with 160 or 170 investors across the country. Um, and as you can imagine, from a sample like that, we have somebody who does everything. Right? There's the guy who's been flipping for 25 years in these four zip codes, and it's just him and his team of contractors, and he's just looking for more deals. And there's the fully national wholesaler, and then there's people who target states, and then there's people who target main metro areas, and all that kind of stuff. So I think like nationwide wholesaling, a lot of people just kind of lump everybody who does that together. There's a lot of different flavors, so to speak, of that model. One that a lot of our clients do is like top metro areas across the country. Maybe we're going to target like 20 or 30 metro areas, and we're going to target it just to like tight around those metro areas. Then there's more these like statewide, more national models like you have. Here's the craziest thing about your model. When I was analyzing, because we have all of our clients' ROI data, and I analyzed, how are they doing by different parameters. One of those being how many markets they're in and stuff like that. What's crazy is the people who do the model most similar to yours amongst our clients, they have the both best return on ad spend of any of our clients and also worst return on ad spend of any of our clients, meaning they're either succeeding on a really high level because their lead cost gets so low. Like what you preach, as I understand it, is get your lead, go wide enough that you can get your lead cost below $70. That requires pretty rural areas sometimes, and not a lot of people like that, right? The lead cost is so low that if they're monetizing them really well, they can have excellent return on ad spend. But then a lot of people fall on their face where I'm just looking at their data and I'm seeing 90% contract fallout, or
Mm-hmm.
like really thin spreads and stuff like that. So what differentiates these people who are winning this on a really high level and those that like try this and they say, I don't know, Nick makes it work somehow, but I can't make this work.
Exit strategies in rural markets, right? So if you're trying to wholesale a deal in BFE, you're going to have a hard time. But if you're listing it for sale um, on the MLS as a novation or a wholesale, you're going to be able to clean up. There's a lot of these towns throughout the United States that you've never heard of that are on fire, right? Everything that goes for sale goes pending. Like they're great markets, but they are smaller and they might not be the best for a wholesale deal. So if you're trying to force wholesale in rural markets, that's going to be where you lose leverage, right? Because there might be two flippers in that market. And if they don't buy it, what are you going to do? And so,
Mm-hmm.
that's really, I think, where people struggle is exit strategies in rural markets. Yeah. the bigger MSAs are good for wholesale, um, or novation regardless, but those are also more competitive as well. So you have to look at both sides. You can be in the top 100 markets, but you're up against a lot of really good other companies that you're going to have to compete against, multiple
Mhm.
offers and et cetera.
Yeah, let's talk about wholesale. I'm sorry, wholesale innovations. I'd love to dig into that a little bit and just share with you kind of where what I'm seeing people do, and I'm really curious to hear you speak to it. Number one, I don't see a lot of wholesale nationally. Local investors, I see a lot of people doing wholesale. When it comes to a national level, it seems to be much less common. I don't know if people are just afraid of actually buying properties that are in areas that they're not familiar with. It feels like an amount of risk that they're not comfortable with, or something like that. But tell me, how do you use like maybe what percentage of your deals are wholesale? How do you know if you want to do that versus innovation?
If the spread is really good and we want to secure the bag, we will wholesale it, right? So there's a lot that can happen in innovation. Innovations are great, but you're giving the seller theoretically 6 weeks at a minimum before that deal closes to change their mind. Now, if I have a great deal in a great market and it's clear as day what our you know best and worst case scenario is, and I'm comfortable with that, we're going to wholesale it because I'm able to take control of that property, get the seller out of the equation, and I know that I'm as clear as day I'm getting paid on that property, right?
Hmm.
So there's certainty in wholetailing. Now, it takes a certain amount of confidence and experience and skill to be able to do that. So if you're thinking about it, like start off and do one, right? And make it a property that's easy, that you're not going to have to do work to. You can just take it down, relist it on the MLS, and you're you know you're confident in everything. When you're wholetailing, you're treating it just like a flip in your backyard. You're getting an inspection report. You're getting a realtor to give you their opinion on the property as well. You're going through all your due diligence, running your comps like you always do, and yeah, then from there you close on the property, and ideally you don't have to do any work to it. You can relist with the agent that you're working with and collect a nice fee on the back end.
So what if we're talking about someone here who maybe hasn't done a lot of flipping, right? So this is kind of their first entry into like actually buying properties and not just wholesaling them. I think where a lot of people, the rabbit hole they start to go down is now I have to train my acquisitions managers to become that person who's going to comp it, who's going to understand the best case, the worst case, who's going to be able to make the call if this is going to be a novation or a wholesale, et cetera. And that has some challenges with the kind of person that's usually an acquisitions manager isn't like your real estate underwriter, right? Very, very different personalities. But also, this is a process that moves fast, right? We got to be able to move on a fly. So I'm curious how you've approached that. Do you have like separate people in your team who do that and feed acquisitions information? Have you been able to train acquisitions to do that type of thing?
Um, our acquisitions are all trained on how to underwrite property, and that's part of our trainings every week. We do comp training twice a week in our office, and our guys are really dialed in on being able to find comps and get these properties as low as possible. It's not really their job to say if we're flipping the property or not. That kind of comes after the contract's already been locked up, and our dispo team and our CEO Brandon will make the decision on if we're going to wholesale that property. If we say okay, we're going to wholesale it, we have a checklist of everything that needs to happen, to make sure we don't miss any steps in the process. And
So
because we've got so many, we've got an in-house project manager that runs all of that.
that's so interesting. So you have a seller sign the same contract, you have the same type of appointment with them, everything, and then after the contract's signed, that's when you're deciding is this a hotel or is this innovation.
Correct.
All right,
Correct.
that's super interesting.
And it usually comes down to the risk of losing the deal. If we know there's a lot of other investors making offers on this property, if the seller is difficult to deal with and there's a large spread involved, we'll that's even though we have to have financing costs and stuff, a lot of times it's better to have that certainty, because you know how this business is. Um, you know, anything can happen up into the day of closing.
Oh, totally.
Yep.
Okay, that's super interesting. Let's talk about novations, which obviously have increased in popularity a ton over the past year. A lot of that due to it being just like a really low risk and high potential spread and capable in many markets exit strategy. There's kind of there are downsides to novations, but they are few. However, the way that I see most people approaching novations versus wholesale is I'm going in for a cash deal. If it doesn't work with the seller, then I'm kind of like theoretically, if we're talking, if we're talking virtual wholesaling, I'm theoretically kind of like walking out the door, and then I'm turning around and I'm saying, "Oh wait, I have one other thing. It's this equity protection program, or whatever it is, and I might be able to get you a little bit of a higher offer, right?" So innovation for many of our clients is like the backup when a cash deal doesn't work. However, with your strategy, because you're doing fewer wholesales, I imagine novations is going to not necessarily be the backup, but be more of a primary strategy. So then the question is like, how do you message that? Is it still like you go in for the cash deal first, and then novation is kind of like once they're anchored on a cash deal, novation is kind of how you save it with a higher offer. What's the approach that you guys take to that?
Yeah, I mean, we always come in and anchor with a cash price, even if we are going in to get innovation. So that's the way that we pitch is we make sure that you know we underrate it as cash, even if we know we're not gonna do a cash deal. Like I said, in these rural markets, we're almost always doing innovation because it makes the most sense. So they will still give a cash offer to the seller, and then it makes the innovation offer much more appealing after they're, you know, after they hear that cash offer.
Got it. Okay, so cash offer is a price anchor.
Hmm.
Understood. Okay, that's super interesting because the same process as other people. It's just with other people, it ends up being a cash deal much more often. And then with you, you just know you're going in for the innovation from the very first second. So
Yes.
you steer
Yep.
it that direction. All right, that's super interesting. Let's talk about in this. I'm curious to see how our opinions differ or are similar on this. So a lot of people are basically trying to figure out PPC, and they just can't make it work, right? They're working with different agencies. They're trying to do it themselves. They're hiring people on their team to try to do it, and then like kind of no matter what people do, it seems like they tend to fail on some level with PPC, or at least it's really common. So when somebody's considering that, obviously you and I are like naturally on different sides of this table, right? I have a managed service for PPC. We encourage people to come with us, and we say, you know what? Yeah, there are some bad agencies out there. We're a good agency. We're going to take good care of you. We have a lot of data. We can make this work, and we have people do that with us. Um, your model has you as part of your program, you're actually teaching people to do their own PPC. And I don't think you're exclusively telling them like this is the only way to do it, but that's kind of the model that you've had there. So as much as I believe in what I believe in, I love a good healthy conflict. And I think that's where we can get down to it a little bit more. I'm super curious to hear your opinions on like what are if I'm an investor and I want to make PPC work for my business, what are the different paths I should consider, and why would I go down one of those paths versus the other?
Yeah. So my my stance on it is, as the investor, my PPC journey, I learned how to do it myself through trial and error. And eventually I got it up and running and started doing very well at it. And then, going to masterminds, I would hear like, you need to, there's always somebody that's out there that can do it better than you, outsource it. And I did. And I've had PPC agencies do well for me. Don't get me wrong, but there has always been a shelf life on how long they continue to perform well. They do well for 3 months and then the performance would go downhill, or I would outsource it and they would screw up my campaigns. And I went through this probably 7, 8, maybe 10 times before I just said, you know what, you know I'm pretty confident I have a better grasp on PPC than the agencies that I'm outsourcing and manage and that are managing it. So there are good agencies out there. You built an incredible business for the most part. Like I think that it's a skill that is not that hard to learn. It's if you can run cold calling and pull list and list stack and do all that, you can do PPC. In my opinion, it's actually easier than managing data and things like that. And it just takes a little bit of you know time to learn it. And when I say a little bit, it's not that much. Like our mentorship is designed to get you up within the first couple days to where you're generating leads within 72 hours of signing up if you hit the books and implement.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm curious because you said that, and I didn't know all the details of your previous experiences that you had with PPC companies. You said there's always this shelf life, right? Things are good and then they're not, and then things are good and then they're not. Have you ever found a shelf life with your own campaigns?
For sure. Absolutely. Like I think there is a point of diminishing returns and there is a shelf life on campaigns. Like if you look into my Google Ads account, you'll see campaigns that are paused that have thousands and thousands of conversions on them. And it's because they hit that shelf life and it was time for them to just be shut down, put out the pasture. And, I went in and, I've got new campaigns. So I don't know why that is with the algorithm, but, you know, I've never had a campaign that's lasted forever or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
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 Which is kind of interesting because I think I guess I'll pose a question, like some way that I think about this is that um, airplanes are like 95% flown by autopilot, right?
Hmm.
Yet pilots make a lot of money. So if you think about it, why do pilots make a lot of money when they're just sitting in there in the airplane and they're not really doing that much? Um, well, they make a lot of money because the moment that something goes wrong, you really want to have somebody who knows what they're doing there to fix the problem, right? Because everything's good when it's good, and then when it's not, it's not. And I think what a lot of agencies do is they kind of put it on autopilot, but then they've got no pilot in the plane anymore. So then with this shelf life, I wonder if even the shelf life you're talking about is like the the natural shelf life, so to speak, of a strategy without iteration. And on the agency side, they're just not able to make the iteration often. Whereas on your side, in many ways, you're kind of like going through the same experience, but you're coming back from the tough times, more effectively. Or perhaps with agencies, I've also seen people like just run their campaigns until things get bad, even by just like the nature of things, and then they just quit and then try a different agency, and then it magically gets better because anytime you change something, it gets better. Or if you like change something when things are bad, like usually you can only go up from there. Right. So then they just kind of like build this, this idea that they need to change it when maybe the agency would have recovered it. But anyways, I'm curious what you think of like that analogy and to what extent it could apply here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is probably common, especially with a lot of agencies. They do well and they start bringing on a lot of clients, and then you know they they may have originally been super invested in your campaign, and now your campaign's running, so it's on the back burner, and they haven't maybe somebody else watching it, and then that's what happens. And like you said, it's the airplane without a pilot analogy, and I don't like feeling like that as a business owner. Like, here's the thing is I take extreme ownership for everything in my business. And so I don't want a single point of failure, or I don't want a vendor being responsible for why I'm not doing well. If I'm going to be pissed off at somebody, I'd rather be pissed off at myself than some outside company. So that's why having it in house has been beneficial to me, is because um, you know if I'm going to be angry about how my campaigns are going, I'll be angry at myself, and I can figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. It's a wild ride owning a
Yeah,
business. I
yeah,
totally
and
know what you're talking about.
yeah. I don't have any issues with using outside agencies, and I think it's a good supplemental resource, or even a big part of your digital marketing strategy. But I don't. I also believe that you should have it in house. There should never be a single point of failure in your business, right? If you're 100% reliant on one agency, you set yourself up you know, for potentially anything. Like, I mean, you have an established business, but anything can happen, right? Like, you could end up, getting hit by a bus, or God forbid, anything were to happen to you. you're the single point of failure behind my entire career. So that's the scary part.
If it gives you any comfort, Nick, once upon a time that was true. Now I could get hit by a bus and I think things would go okay around here. But
Good, good.
it was true once upon
Yeah.
a time. I mean, but every because if you have like, I mean, what you're talking about is just like the concept of outsourcing overall, right? Um,
Mhm.
if the company you're working with, it has a single point of failure, then you're at risk. If the company you're working with has their stuff figured out, then you're not. I don't think most people really evaluate companies on how well they have their stuff together or a single point of failure when they're deciding to work with them, right? They usually use other things like track record. And honestly, in this industry, I like when people ask why they should hire us, I don't point to our track record. The reason I don't is because I don't think it actually matters. I think the future is going to be different from the past always. Past performance doesn't predict future results, right? I point to the fact that we have like a research and development team that's always trying to stay on top of what's working. I point to the fact that we have a team structure and the right accountability that should make sure that those things don't go on autopilot in all these
Mhm.
things. But that's not the reason that people hire us is never for those reasons. Like
Yeah.
I think it should be, but it's not. They always hire us because whoever it is that's worked with us said that they had great results and stuff. And I think it has nothing to do with their results in the future. To be completely honest, I think it matters. It matters a little bit, but how the companies run has so much to do with how at risk you are.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's true for any business, and same thing with what you do and what I do. It like we just talked about earlier. If you don't have a good company, you know that's really what it comes down to is how well your internal operations are run.
Yeah, that's. I have one more question if you're open to it. I'm curious to hear through your journey owning a business. I'm sure you've gone through highs. I'm sure you've gone through lows. I'm curious, what have been the things that have made a biggest difference, not to your business success, but to your own ability to live the life that you want to live?
Um, Investing in high level mentorship has been the fastest way to shortcut success. They say a wise man learns from his own mistakes, a brilliant man learns from another man. So, you know, that has been what has got me to where I am is going to masterminds, um, taking my education seriously. I'm a high school dropout, but I've spent over 7 figures on my own education. Right.
Hmm.
So getting educated and not being afraid to implement and fail, right? I think a lot of people think that you know success is like this when it's not. It's a rocky road. Like if you ever listen to Ray Dalio, success is you learn something, then you try to implement it and you fail, you fall on your face and you learn from it and you get back up and you try again, and then you get a little bit further, and then you're going to fail probably again, learn from it, and then next time you get up you get a little bit further. And that's how you build is you build on your from learning from trying and implementing and learning from your previous mistakes. So that's it. And you don't want to try stupid stuff either. You want to learn from the best people. So
Yeah.
um, but don't be hard on yourself. You're going to screw up anytime you try to implement something new the first time. Um, as long as you stay at it and continue to learn, you'll end up getting far.
And it seems like that was a piece of your values, even back when you did your 104 appointments over 11 months to get your first deal in real estate. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I'm just a dog, man. I mean, I'm not going to give up. Like as long as my heart's still beating, I got breath in my lungs. I'm going to wake up and get after it. Like I don't accept laying down. I'm a winner, so I'm not going to stay laying down. I'm not going to be a loser. I'm not going to fail. Like you have to kill me in order for me to fail. That's just the bottom line. So that's really what it comes down to is I'm not going to cry. I'm going to get up no matter how bad it hurts. And that competitive, just nature and desire to be the best me I can be and to be great is what has got us to this point, and I'm still just getting started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's next? You're just getting started. Nick Perry, 10 years from now, who is he? What does he do? What have you
Yeah, I mean,
accomplished?
our company is still growing, and I feel like we've got it to a point now where we can grow much faster. So I don't like to project out 10 years because that's just too far. I'm I'm focused on the next 90 days, right? The next 90 days we've got four more hires getting ready to start. We've got a brand new office we're moving into. Once that's settled in, we'll be at the next level, and I'm going to continue to build and continue to grow. Um, you know, I've got enough money that, I can live the lifestyle I want to live, but that doesn't mean anything for me. I care about maxing out my potential. And people always ask me, well, why don't you go start another business? Why don't you do this and that? And I'm in, M&A masterminds, and I'm in other masterminds for different businesses. And every time I've ever thought about, well, you know what, I'm going to go out and buy a different company. I'm going to invest into these other asset classes. It always comes back that this is this is what I love to do. This is what I'm good at. And the time and energy that I put into buying another company or whatever, I could invest that time, energy, and money into my own company and um, get much higher returns. So that's where I'm at. I own other assets. I own a lot out in the oil and gas industry, but like this is where my heart is. This is what I'm passionate about, and and we're just gonna do it until the fucking wheels fall off.
Love it, man. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Instagram, I'm on there, Nick Perry REI on Instagram. You can reach out to me there. Give me a follow. Let me know if you guys need anything.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Nick. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Good luck with everything, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.